For this video, I would like you to imagine that we've been asked by teacher Abby to help her improve a lesson she has taught in the past, but with little success and engagement from her learners. According to the curriculum, Abby needs to teach the history of the town they live in, Seattle, to her grade 5 social science learners. In the past, she would be using the textbook and read to the learners more about the history of the town. Once done, she would ask the class if they had any questions. To make sure the learners understood what she read, she let them write a test. She realized that the learners did not enjoy learning about the history of a town despite the fact that they had a rich history. Let's analyze Abby's current classroom practice. Take a piece of paper and answer the following questions. The learning objective. What were the activities Abby performed to reach these objectives with the learners? What were the activities the learners in Abby's class had to do to reach the objective? What evidence did Abby collect to evaluate the progress the learners made towards achieving the objectives? Why don't you pause this video now and complete these questions? Here is what I think Abby would have answered. What do you think Abby hoped to achieve by the end of this lesson, the learning objective? By the end of this lesson, my learners should know the history of Seattle. What were the activities Abby performed to reach the objectives with the learners? I read from the textbook. What were the activities the learners in Abby's class had to do to reach these objectives? The learners will listen to me as I present the lesson. What evidence did Abby collect to evaluate the progress the learners made towards achieving the objectives? A class test. Do you think Abby's lesson was a success? Do you think that the text Abby read to the learners, the content was presented in the best possible way, pedagogy? I'm sure you will agree with me that there are many pedagogical approaches Abby could apply to make a lesson more engaging. Let's use the learning activity checklist to find suggestions for what the learners could do. Abby could make sure that the learners understood why it's important to know more about the town's history. Abby could challenge the learners to ask the elders of the community questions about the history of the town. Abby could take her learners on a tour of the town, asking someone from the community to tell the learners more about the people and the buildings in the town. Instead of asking the learners to write a class test about the history of the town, she could have asked the learners to create a poster for a local library about the history of the town. These possible activities would give the learners the opportunity to investigate the history of the town. Asking the learners to create a poster for the library gives the learners the opportunity to present ideas visually. As the learners interview community members regarding the history of the town, they are making connections between the different stories they heard. When we look at the last of the 3 learning activity categories, Abby could easily integrate technology, for example, help the learners organize their work, or even interview a famous person who grew up in their town. Let me show you an example that Abby could have done. But just before I play the video, note that this is an example from an American teacher, and she did this project over a year. Do not get overwhelmed by all these resources you see in this video. Rather focus on how this teacher brings together the content, the pedagogy, and the technology as a holistic approach. As you watch this video, observe the learners' activities, that the activities allow them to do, and how they integrate technology. Once you have watched the video, turn to the activity where you will be asked to complete a lesson plan for the new lesson Abby presented based on the ideas you shown in the video. Remember, you can pause and play this and rewind this video at any time.
It's a big day at High Point Elementary in Seattle, Washington. It's the annual Science and Technology Open House. But this year, the event marks something special. The grand opening of a virtual museum created by teacher Abby Alessi's 4th and 5th grade students. assuming roles such as
curator, exhibit designer, public relations officer.
Her students put together exhibits covering a variety of Washington state topics, including history makers, geography, the environment, and the economy.
Everybody is a computer! Computer!
There's good reason to showcase and celebrate their work with schoolmates, family, and friends today. After all, their virtual museum is the culmination of a year-long, standards-based, technology-rich unit created by their teacher, a unit that started with careful planning. Abby wanted to focus on history and language arts, but looked at how she could integrate as many of the core curriculum subjects as possible, challenging her students in a variety of ways to develop higher-level thinking skills, problem-solving skills, and communication skills. She wanted the unit to be meaningful to her students, having them create museum exhibits incorporating places, people, and things from the world around them would give their work relevance. She also knew by giving her students an opportunity to use the tools that were being used in the world outside the classroom, it would engage their learning. Using a curriculum map, Abby laid out all the subjects she would be teaching for the year, along with the requisite standards that needed to be met. This mapping helped her pace the museum unit within the context of everything else she needed to address during the year, ensuring no overlap. It also helped her to use her time more efficiently.
Some of the big topics that you can choose from are
Using a PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of the year, she laid out the unit for her students, explaining what they would be doing and what she expected from them. Her presentation also served to model the kind of performance she expected her students to deliver with their own multimedia presentations at the end of the year.
Of what we want our final project to look like.
It was a challenging unit for the students, but also one filled with a lot of fun, including this field trip to learn the best way to put their own museum together. The staff at Seattle's Museum of History and Industry gave students a behind-the-scenes look. Everything learned here would be put to use back in the classroom, so it's no wonder good listening and accurate note-taking ruled the day.
Curators, you have two major jobs to do today.
The students even got a dry run at creating an exhibit and making a presentation. Knowledge and experience that would come in handy as they prepared their final projects for the unit.
Mostly my job is to make the exhibit more interesting.
Making a community connection, getting students to understand their personal link to the world around them was important for Abby in setting up the unit. This visit helped them grasp how a museum reflects the ideas and the values of its community.
Hi, you guys. I'm Joan Cabresa, and I'm here from the Environmental Protection Agency to talk to you today.
Along with visiting experts outside the classroom, experts from the community were invited into the classroom to share their knowledge. Abby's students often videotaped these visits so they could share what they learned with the rest of the school via the school's closed-circuit TV system. Students would also be putting their writing skills to use with follow-up emails to those visitors. Throughout the year, this unit encouraged students to take ownership of their work, direct their own learning, and in the process, discover how technology could support it. CD-ROMs came in handy in gathering information. The Internet served as a valuable tool for research. Digital cameras allowed the students to capture explosive pictures for their presentations. Not quite St. Helens, but a process no less that helped them take pride in their work. It was also an opportunity for Abby to creatively infuse her teaching with the technology she's gained through workshops and seminars she's attended. Abby will be the first to admit, however, this unit has been a team effort all the way. Just as the students worked and learned from each other, Abby brainstormed and worked with her colleagues to enrich the unit.
All right, take a piece of chalk, Tony, and
The school's art instructor was instrumental in assisting both Abby and the students in creating the mural that would become part of the final project. Throughout the museum unit, careful attention was paid toward assessment. Abby created rubrics tailored to the unit. She also had her students doing self-assessment, making entries in a journal as they advanced through the unit. And perhaps most important, she conducted student-teacher assessments where she conferenced with individual students to determine how well they were working together.
Great. Good job.
And speaking of assessment, what do fellow students and community members think of this virtual museum? Based on the enthusiasm and interest shown here, this grand opening and this standards-based, technology-rich unit can both be considered a smashing success.